Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day as well as end of week market recap. Congratulations, you made it through the week. All kinds of crazy price action over the last few weeks, but I will wrap it up with you guys here in this end of week video. Before I do that, this is where you go if you would like to be a member of Tribeca Trade Group. And obviously, the commentary that I provide in these end of day videos is, just a small picture of what we do during the week. We provide to members like a pre-market commentary, which usually lasts about 10 or 15 minutes, where I go through all the macro movers, all the events to watch for the day, just so that you're informed. And then I'll talk about, just like we did a little bit this week with, a lot of the earnings movers and basically trying to set up trades. And I think we did a pretty good job of that, finding some movers and being able to, even if you weren't long that particular name, just watching what the sector does. I think the restaurant names were a really good example of that this week. Chipotle, turned in a stellar quarter, and it really gave a lift to just about every name out there. That has to do with like fast food, casual dining, restaurants, that type of thing. Wingstop had a big week. Kava had a big week. Sweet Green also had another good week. So that's what we do in the beginning of the day. And then, of course, real time, trade alerts as well as trade setups. I have a channel that specifically that, I will post my trade alerts or trade ideas and charts, some of which I do take the trades on the trade ideas, but when I do take a trade, I always follow up with a chart, just so that you know what I'm thinking and know what's going on. And then also, like, some trades that I don't trade, that I will provide the setup, because I may already be long that group or that sector and have enough exposure to it. But it's a little bit different than I write a Substack too, which is ideal for like part-time members, and that I will provide what my portfolio is and what names are going on the watch list and so on and so forth. But if you want real time and if you want more hands-on, then I would suggest you go to the website. The Substack is also ttgtrading.substack.com. It's difficult to read in there. So let's get enough of that. Let's get to the price action for this week and some how the week basically transpired. But risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're talking about is for information purposes only. Also, note that the audio is not as good today. I'm in my now upstate New York location, so I'll be doing that part-time, but most of the time I'll still be in my New York office. So let's get to this should really be themes of the day, but I'll talk about themes of the week too. But today was more we had the PCE deflator, which is the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation, which came in basically on the screws. I think that's I would say that that's positive at this point, or at least a step in the right direction. Why do I think that? Because the last three readings, I think the CPI report, which by the way, the market cares more about the CPI report than they do the PCE deflator. I don't really know why, but it is what it is. But at least, remember, the last 3 months have shown an increase in inflation, higher than what the expected amount was indicated. So 0.3, if you annualize this out, if we get more 0.3s, you'll get 2.4%, which is close to the Fed's goal, not quite there. So we're definitely going to need to see some zeros. We're going to need to see some plus ones to get us to the gauge of inflation. So I know that's the big thing that that the media focus on is, geez, are we going to get rate cuts and so on and so forth? I don't think that we particularly need them in an election year, because we know that the Treasury has been doing stimulus there. But anyway, that's my opinion about the will they, won't they about rate cuts. And by the way, and if you're long some T-bills, you probably don't want rate cuts either. You're making a lot of money with T-bills right now, and it's nice to have your cash working for you, in my opinion. So, and if you're not in T-bills, you can, in an endorsement for public.com, they have a high rate. I think it's like 5.1%. And you can also enroll. They will actually handle the rolling of the T-bills for you. So it's an account that I've been using for the last few months. So in any event, that's what they're not really, going back to the back end of the year. There's about a 40% chance that they're going to cut interest rates. But in any event, I just thought I'd bring that up because it's kind of an end of the week thing. Today was more of a risk-on move, and I think that was also helped by earnings. I think looking at where we were just about a week ago, there was a lot of Middle East headlines and conflict that was going on a week from Thursday. Right, that's kind of quieted down, and just as I thought, the market would focus more on the micro, more on earnings reports. And there were some big earnings reports this week, to the downside, to the upside, which I think is kind of par for the course. Obviously, we want to be seeing more names that are going to be showing positive reactions. I didn't count one by one, but I think I'm building out our earnings watch list, which is very useful to me because we often find trading opportunities for the next month based on who and leadership from who really has good earnings quarters. Because basically what happens is, especially when it's an earnings surprise, institutions are going to actually, they're going to have to start buying that company after the earnings gap so that they have exposure to that name, right? Now, of course, like the savvy funds, may have already had a position in that name, like, such as like Google. I had a position in Google in our TTG trend portfolio. So, that's perfect when that happens, right? But overall, funds, names that gap up that are lesser known, funds are going to have to go out and start purchasing those names. All right. So there's the performance. I'm not really going to go over too much of the performance for the week. Because sorry, for the performance for the day, because I really want to kind of recap some of the charts and some of the chart setups too. But yeah, it was more of a risk-on type day. If you look down here, we've got value versus growth. You could see that growth outperformed 1.8%. Value is flat. Utilities underperformed today. This is the first day. Utilities were up 7 days in a row. And I think the consumer staples were up 7 days in a row as well. They were red yesterday and today. But utilities, this was the first day in 8 days that the utilities were actually down. So that's where the strength, was, as well as some of the other areas like financials. But today it was more risk on with everything from clean energy to retail to biotech. Home builders, and of course those semis, bright green there, up 2.5% for the week. I'm going to get back to the semis in a second, but because really interesting to see the 2-day performance. But let's get right to the charts. Let's talk about what the S&P. I spent a lot of time focusing on, and I do this once the market has been going down. I will generally look for hints in the 1-hour chart. Because that's really the first step that you'll see. So notice I'm looking at right now the weekly chart. It's kind of interesting because, and I'm going to show you the semis chart too in just a few minutes, but just an inside candle for S&P futures this week. So it's tough to really get super excited, other than if you made money this week, congratulations. And there were some nice trading opportunities, some nice trades, obviously that we had on our books this week. But ultimately, you want to be looking at these weekly charts to see if anything changed in the trend. So far, no. It was just we had a major red bar the previous week. So when you look at this and the big picture is that basically we didn't take back any major ground. Right. And then if we look at the 1 hour, I'm going to get to the 1-hour charts in a second, but if we look at the daily chart too, right, we know that we had this breakdown. We were in this channel. We broke the channel. We not only broke the channel, but we broke below the April value area. And we're going to have a test here. Now, the other thing that you can begin to do, because we could be facing a rejection, but it could be a minor rejection. It may not be a major rejection where we start to go back lower. I think it's going to depend on more earnings reports. But I think we only have 2 more days left of April. We're going to want to stay focused on what this value area is going to tell us. So it's still a developing value area because it's based on all of April's activity, and April's not done yet. So, but you could see we might be able to open up inside that value area for the new month. That's going to be right around 5,100, right? So again, 2 more days to go, and we'll see. And if there's a little bit of backing and filling in here, just as long as we don't take out this lows. We could also, what's also in the cards is maybe a double bottom too in the next couple of weeks. You just don't know yet. And I think really I'll be watching that bottom of value. That will be very instrumental for my analysis once we get to the month of May. And then also just to kind of round things out here with the 1-hour chart, but really some great tradable days for those who are playing both sides of the market, both up and down, because you really saw that after the Meta earnings. A really nice test in here to the bottom of value. I took advantage of that and I went long the S&P on that test, bottom of the value area test. And then really after that, there wasn't that much of a move. So also, we'll be looking at this 51.38 or call it maybe 51.40, round up a little bit. That will be the top of value to watch for next week, right? And again, they become very instrumental in giving you levels to trade off of. For example, we get above 51.40, I would want to be long, right? And maybe target this virgin point of control, which is about, let's see, just move this over, about 2% above. Right, but the first thing is you got to get above that value area, right? And if not, we might chop around, and then we'll be watching the bottom of value, right? That's basically how it's done. All right, so that'll be something to watch. Let's talk about the Qs for a minute. And the Qs, did we complete the 80% rule? Almost completed the 80% rule. So this would be in the 20% factor, but man, we came very close. Right, and a nice move back, back into the value area yesterday. But overall, nice price action. The Qs did outperform. When we look at this weekly bar, it's kind of the same thing. It's also an inside week, right? So no change in that trend from once we started to move in the short-term trend, right? Long-term trend, we're still above the value area for the year, right? We're still in an uptrend, no problem. But for the short term, right? We're still kind of trending down, I would say, because we didn't take back any of that. And here's the daily chart as well. Note that we're still about 1% away from the bottom of value for the April value area. And again, like here's where the bottom of value is going to line up for May. Again, we'll still be developing, right? Because we still have 2 more days, right? And again, that those May value areas are defined on all the volume and price action for the month. And then lastly, we'll just do IWM here really quickly. IWM didn't take out the what is this, the Tuesday's highs. So kind of interesting there. Nice bounce off of that VPOC above the 5-day moving average, but still has some overhead supply to deal with. Also the same situation going on here, right? Inside week. When we look at the weekly candle, all right? And yeah, so we'll move on. Let's talk a little bit about the sectors or the performance for the week. So here's your performance for the whole week. Right here, it looks like my Bloomberg went down, but that's okay. I don't think I need it. Yeah, so SPY finished up 2.7% for the week. The diamonds, which were actually flat last week, that was the one thing we kind of got a couple hints as the week wrapped up last week that it wasn't as bad, than what people thought. But those finished up almost 1% for the week. Small caps right in line with the S&P. Qs up 4%. International areas did very well as well this week. TLT was down 1%. The dollar was essentially flat. Bitcoin was down 1%. A nice performance growth versus value. Now, the other thing is too, similarly to, we could look at the VUG chart too. It's not a chart that I bring up all the time, but I think it's just kind of instrumental to kind of look at what the weekly chart represents. And that's also an inside week as well, all right, for growth. Value, we could look at this one. Now, obviously, value did not outperform this week, but it's actually like a little bit of a better weekly looking view, not an inside week, right? But did not close on the highs either. All right, and then semis. What's really interesting here is the SMH. which if you look at that, this is very extreme, because the semis were down, I think, 9.7%. Not this week, but the prior week, and then this week up 9.3%. So this really gave you, again, some good trading opportunities. I posted this on Twitter, and someone said, "Hey, I was loving trading SOXL and SOXS." Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, they're really good ranges to explore and to make money on both sides, whatever the market basically gave you. The Chinese Internet ETF, look at that, up 13%. I am long, not the Chinese Internet ETF, but I am long EEM via options. I haven't gotten that trade to work yet, but I put that trade on a couple weeks ago when I saw copper go up, because sometimes copper and emerging markets are correlated. But that's one hell of a candle for the Chinese Internet ETF. I'm long PDD is the name that I decided to go long. Now, I think that looks great. Nice turn there. This has been more of an outperformer. I always go to the outperformers or to the leaders rather than the relative weak names. But sometimes you could see bigger names off the lows from some of those names. So we went over semis. Clean energy had a good week. Tech had a good week. Consumer discretionary, again, a lot of growth areas of the market had a pretty darn good week. Steel, some bad earnings reports. Nucor, and a couple other names, RS, Reliance Steel and Aluminum, did not have a good report. That group was down 1%, underperforming. Metals and mining were actually flat for the week. Kind of crazy because, when you look at both gold and you look at copper, which I'm going to bring up copper first. I like copper. I'm more excited about. But, look at the move in copper, right? And, I did go long SCCO yesterday. Right? I was stalking this name. Unfortunately, earnings got in the way. So I did take part of the trade-off yesterday because you never know on earnings. But that's a really nice move. And I like this chart better than Freeport-McMoRan personally. I have noticed this like over the last couple of years, that FCX always sees the call activity, but the outperformer is usually Southern Copper, which hardly ever sees any call activity. So I would rather go with the one that performs better, but that's just me. Some people like to say they saw option activity, but price will tell you everything, in my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. I said I was going to bring up gold. Let's talk about gold too. Gold, we'll look at this in terms of the daily chart, the daily chart next. Oh, I forgot to bring up the daily chart in copper, but yeah, here is the daily chart. Sorry about that. So I don't know why it's not. Oh, the value is all the way down here. So, a little bit weak in the beginning of the week. Try to retake that 20-day moving average. Not yet. Even though Newmont had a really big quarter. Right, here's what the weekly chart looks like. Right, Newmont had a huge move on earnings. Still inside the value area. 44.84 is the level to watch, top of value. Had a small inside day. So again, that's interesting. That no breakout, just a really nice move from the lows in Newmont. And I mentioned I was going to bring up copper just so that you could see where I think copper is possibly going to next. Is that VPOC up there? If it continues to trend, that's what you want to be targeting, in my opinion, because that's where some overhead supply is up there at 4.87. All right, so that's a couple of the macro. I wanted to go over our watch list just to kind of give you a sense of what goes on in TTG in the trading room. I provide this over the weekend, so usually Sunday night is when I put together the watch list. I review all the open names. Some names that I get into, are not on the watch list. Like I didn't put Wing on here. I went right into Wing instead of putting it on the watch list. But, if you go through some of these names, ATI, so I'm just going alphabetically, but really like I wanted to go through some of these charts with you. And I have some of them in here, so this way we don't have to bring them up. But IoT, that was one where option activity did bring that one to my attention. I did not trade that one. I can't trade every single name. Did I not do anything? Maybe I didn't carry over. I didn't post it in this channel, but I did post the chart. But that's okay. We'll do it right here. But really nice. Right, so look at where this bounced. Same thing as where it bounced in the beginning of the year, right on the top of this this value area. So impressive, right? Very impressive to see that. And now you could trade this if you like, using that bottom of the value area. But that's a hell of a move for 1 week. The other name that I was looking at too, kind of in this space, was App. Even though App was kind of slower to move, it came back and back tested that 50-day moving average yesterday, and got above this week's high. So I like this chart. That will be on the watch list for next week, because I did not add that one either. App should be on here someplace. There it is. Up 7.1% from the trigger. Had a big week. Had a big day today. Up 5.3% from today's open. And then energy too. Look at TDW. Now, I know this name reports earnings next week, so it's tough to kind of position in this, but really nice move. And you're going to see back test to this top of value area. Really nice hold there. Weatherford already reported earnings. I really like this inside day that happened yesterday on the, after earnings. And look at the move today, right? So I know everybody focused on, some of the growth names in big tech, but I'm telling you, the energy names also, I think, still look pretty good. Also, I re-added Wells Fargo today. This was a name, this was really one of the things that I thought was super positive last week, was this breakout of value area. I took profits in here a little bit, may need a little bit more time, but I mentioned that I would get back involved in Wells Fargo if it dipped a little bit, right? But these names are super strong. And JP Morgan stalled out a little bit at the gap, so that gap is now filled. Also, the top of value area, watch 193.80. I'm still long Goldman as well, so I'm kind of overweight the banks. Some of the financials here. Goldman made a new high today. Cute little couple days of pullback in here, and out to highs. I mentioned the restaurant stocks. So this one's going to report earnings next week, but I'm not going to just stand there and wait for earnings. Some of these names will run into earnings. Very, very strong. Kava, as I mentioned, had a big week, stopped right at the top of the value area. So watch that 69.19 level. Sweet Green is another name that I like in the space. I go there. This is Sweet Green in New York City, but that's a real nice move back outside of the value area. All right, and I'm not going to cover the whole watch list, but again, we'll put in our work again. Spotify had a decent week, and then a couple of the industrial names, right? Tractor Supply had a good week. United Rentals had a good earnings report. Dover had a good earnings report too. So so on and so forth. So I'll end it there, guys. But ultimately, I think watching those resistance levels that we covered a little bit, I think it's going to make for a pretty interesting week for next week. Guys, have a great night and a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.